One of the greatest indicators in any relationship of the status or the health of the relationship is that of growth. Growth. Whether it's individualistic growth or collective growth, growth is a great indicator of how well your relationship is doing currently. Most people don't do check-ins with a relationship. And I'm a firm believer that in any relationship, even the relationship with yourself, at some point in the journey, in your individualistic journey or your collective journey, you need to stop and take personal inventory as well as collective inventory. That means asking yourself or your partner or whomever you're with, am I growing? Do you see growth in me? Or at least having them tell you that they see that you have grown over the course of time that they've gotten to know you, of their spent time with you. And more importantly, you should ask yourself this question: are you growing? Is this relationship bringing out the best in you or the worst in you? For many people, the relationship may be bringing out the worst in them, but they're committed not to themselves and to their personal journey of growth. They're committed to making the relationship work despite the fact that they're not doing work on themselves. Does that make sense? You want to conquer the world, but you don't start at home. You go out and you start this whole journey of overthrowing and conquering, and you may succeed, by design or not design, by accident. And then you come back and your whole house is in disarray. No, they say charity begins at home. And that's where it needs to begin, with you, with your individualistic self. And then that needs to be broadcast or go out into the collective. There are questions that you need to ask yourself in order to know if you're growing. One of those questions is, are your actions and responses and your behavior, indicative of that growth? Have you changed? Are you changing? Are you aware of the change, or you're ignoring the fact that you haven't changed and choosing not to do anything about it? How can you expect someone else to change and focus on that person's change and inability to change, whereas you're not focused on your own lack of motive or initiative? Many of us are hypocrites. Sometimes I often say, you never saw a hypocrite before? You're looking at one right here. I am not impervious. I am human. I always use that disclaimer just in case you tend to forget. I'm human just like you. I'm not here to preach and say, oh, I haven't gone through these things, or I don't deal with these things in my own relationships or with my own self. I'm telling you what I have recognized over the course of my journey in this earthly realm, and trying to help you to get to the place where you can find the peace that is needed to really be happy. Happiness is a result and a byproduct of peace, not the reverse. Happiness is a byproduct of peace. So how do you get to that peaceful state in your relationship? Your relationship is in chaos. You're chaotic. You don't know what to do. You've reached the end of your rope and you're struggling. You're struggling because you're focused on something else other than your own behavior, your own choices, your own responses, your own reactions. It's time to stop, take a pause, and just reflect. Ask yourself these questions. Am I growing? Do I desire to grow? What does that growth look like for me? What does the individualistic growth look like for me? And what do I want this relationship to be? Should this relationship should it be adding to my spiritual, mental, and emotional growth? Or is it detracting from that growth? Now, pause here. I'm not telling you guys, I'm not advocating people breaking up and leaving relationships. That's your call, not mine. What I'm here to tell you is how you can better enhance your relationship. And it starts with the individualistic journey, and it proliferates and it grows and it goes to the collective. Start looking at the other person. It's so easy to formulate distractions so that you don't have to do the work. I said that in my other video. Stop looking at the other person. Stop worrying about what they are or are not doing, and start focusing on what you need to do. What do you need to do? Do you need to stop and tell yourself the truth? Do you need to be honest where you've been dishonest before? Do you not want to have a realistic or a bird's eye view of the situation because it is too much, it's too overwhelming? There's someone in my life, every time I have a crisis or I have a problem, she says to me, don't focus on it. Look away. Don't deal with it. Don't look at your body. Don't look at the problem. Just focus on something else, you know? And a lot of times there are people whose approach to life is exactly that. Don't focus on the problem. Ignore it. Pretend it doesn't exist, and just maybe it will get better. Just maybe when I come back to it, it will be better and the situation will be better. If I'm talking to you, and if you're one of those people, you know that that's not the case. Out of sight, out of mind, and pretending that it doesn't exist does not mean that it does not. Okay. You have to decide what kind of person you want to become. There's benefit in every relationship and every interaction that you engage in. What are the benefits here? How can you take this situation and make it work for you? What are the lessons that the universe is trying to teach you here? What is the universe trying to prompt you to do? Because it's not just about the other person. You know, I am a firm believer sometimes we choose, I mean, by the law of attraction, we attract that which we are, and we attract it for a purpose, right? There's nothing in your life that is here accidentally. Even your choices you've made, you know, like James Allen says, even in his weaker state, man is still the master. Even in your degradation, even in the choices that you think are bad, those choices have some value. They have some lesson to be learned. Why am I talking about this subject? Because it's necessary. It starts with you, the individual. It starts with you understanding what you want and what you need in order to facilitate the growth that is necessary to bring you the peace that will liberate you. Peace is the end goal. Not happiness, not temporary happiness. Happiness is an emotion, it's fleeting. It's not a state of being. If it was a state of being, all of us would be happy all the time, despite what we go through. Your goal is peace within yourself. And that peace within yourself radiates outside of yourself, and it creates this environment, not of chaos, not of toxicity, but one where everyone that is involved in that relationship can facilitate the growth that they need to in order to become their better selves. It starts with one person understanding and accepting that they are responsible and that they have to take accountability for their actions. You can't hold somebody else accountable for their actions. You can try. I know a lot of people that have, but until that person takes personal accountability, there's nothing you can do. I have videos on here about accountability. You should watch those videos. Accountability is not something you can insist someone else takes unless you're the judge or the police, you know, but you cannot make somebody do for themselves what they refuse to do on their own. And I say that repeatedly. If you're in a relationship with yourself, because the first relationship that you should protect is a relationship with yourself. Understanding who you are is key. Not losing yourself because of someone else, not losing yourself because of a situation or a circumstance, but finding yourself in the midst of everything you're going through. You know, suffering is something that I'm told is a beautiful thing. I'm yet to believe that. But in the midst of what you're going through, and the struggle that you're in right now, whether it's in your relationship or within yourself, you have to stop, take personal inventory, and ask yourself these questions. How is this situation helping me to grow? Is there a lesson that I need to learn in this situation? Is this situation something that I should ignore? Or is this situation that I should pay attention to because there's value? And the value is not about what's happening right now, but it could be about my future course, right? That's the first thing you need to do. Ask yourself, what have you learned? What have you learned so far on this journey? What lessons that you discarded that you thought were not useful, that if you peruse them and take the time to inspect them carefully, would you realize that those lessons have value, that they have value in helping you to grow and develop and helping you to become a better person? Should you rely on somebody else to make you a better person, or should you invest in that yourself? You know, if you're in a relationship that's toxic and it's chaotic, is it the other person's fault for making it that way? Is it anybody's fault? What's the lesson that needs to be learned in the midst of what you're going through? You always have choices. I know people don't believe that. And there's some instances like children who are helpless and cannot control their destiny and other people take advantage of them. That's a whole different story. But as an adult, you now have choices. You can choose your path. You can choose your journey. And a lot of you are like, can I really? Yeah. The determination that lies within is only overcome by your inability to believe that it still exists. Just because you're not using it doesn't mean that it's not there. You have to tap into yourself, tap into your resources, and push through whatever you're dealing with in yourself and outside of yourself. Relationships are a lot of work. I had a client recently, she said, I didn't realize how much work it was. Yeah, relationships are a lot of work. And the biggest one that is the most work is the relationship you will have with yourself. The one that you need to develop is the one with yourself first. Ask yourself, how have I changed in the last few years? Years are not indicative of growth. Let me say that again. How old you are is not indicative of personal, spiritual, or emotional growth. It has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with the lessons learned and the changes that have occurred as a result of the lessons that you've learned. If you're choosing to change, if you're choosing to pay attention to those lessons, you will grow. It doesn't matter if you're a child. It doesn't matter if you're a teenager. It doesn't matter if you're an adult. There are many adults that have not grown, and it has nothing to do with their age. It has everything to do with the fact that they've neglected to pay attention to the fact that they have to do the work. They have chosen not to do the work. They've chosen to get stuck in a cycle and a pattern of behavior that is not conducive to growth, but one that continues to support the knowledge that they have at that moment. They don't want to change because it's too much work to change. It's so much easier to just give up and give in. Do you know that? People who give up and give in, it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult to stay on the couch. It's not that difficult to not try to work with your partner and try to be better. It's not that difficult to stop the actions and behaviors that are limiting you in your relationship, are limiting you on your own individual journey. It's not difficult. It's so easy to just give up and give in. But why choose to do that when there's so much more value in the work and in the struggle and in making and in understanding why you're here, how you got from over there to here? There's a process. And if your process has not started, you need to stop for a second, step away from the relationship. Even if it's a relationship that you're currently having with yourself, step away, focus, recalibrate, look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, who am I becoming? Who do I want to be? And more importantly, who do I choose to be in this given moment, whether in a relationship with yourself or a relationship with someone else? And finally, if you're not changing, there's no growth. If you stand stagnant, if water stays still, I watched a show Alone on the History Channel, and one of the contestants, he thought it was running water, and he drank it, and only to find out later on it was not running water, it was still water, and he got sick, and he got diarrhea, and that was not good for him. He had to be pulled out of the show. You have to check to see if you're really changing, because if you're changing, that means that growth is occurring or growth has occurred. If there's been no change, take inventory of your life. I like to have my clients write down, the topography, or what you call it, a chronological order of their life. Go back, write down from the time you were young till now, and see if there's a pattern. See if there's been any change, and if there's been no change, and you've consistently been the same person, and most of that person is negative or hasn't grown, then realize that you might be resistant to change. Maybe you're choosing not to change, and despite despite understanding if there's some part of you that knows that you need to, there's also some part of you that's afraid to change. And people who are usually afraid of changing or growing are resistant to other people telling them that they need to change. You know that? It's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to do something, and you're telling me that I need to do this thing. How about I not? How about I argue, fight, kick, scream, and stay where I am because I'm going to call it stubbornness. I'm going to label it that I'm independent and that's my individuality. And you cannot force me to do something I don't want to do. Whereas that person in your life is prompting you towards growth. My name is Ingrid Felton. I've said a lot today. I've been long-winded. I hope you got something from what I'm saying, and I hope you understand how growth is important individualistically and how that individualistic growth can help you collectively, whether it's in a relationship with a spouse, a partner, work, wherever. You have to grow. You have to ask yourself, are you growing? Is this relationship bringing out the best in you or the worst? And then make a choice. And the choice should be choose to grow, choose to embrace change, because change is growth. As always, thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing to the videos. Thank you for liking the videos. Thank you for telling your friends and other people about what I'm trying to do here. All I'm doing is sharing the knowledge that I received on my own individual journey and helping you to get to the place where you can also grow. I'm a constant growth. I am learning as I grow. I'm almost a century old, and I know that there's a lot between here and getting to there if I do, that I'm willing to embrace. Change is good. It's not always easy, but it's good. Have an amazing day. Bye.